You have to hear this. The scientists have found a magma reservoir underneath, or we have to say lurking beneath, a popular tourist destination. And not just a normal magma reservoir, we're talking Yellowstone size. And the deep magma chamber at Yellowstone can fill 13 Grand Canyons. This is how large it is. And so this new finding has really surprised the scientists. Huge magma reservoir beneath Tuscany. Tuscany, what? On par in volume with Yellowstone, and now even volcanology coverage in Europe is saying it clearly. Researchers have discovered a massive magma reservoir beneath Tuscany. And that's what I want to talk to you about in this video, because beneath one of Italy's most famous and beautiful regions, they have now found this enormous magmatic system hidden deep in the crust. So we're talking about Campi Flegrei all the time, the supervolcano near Naples. And there's news about it, by the way, that you should check out in the end screen. But what makes this story so fascinating is that this is not Campi Flegrei, it's not Yellowstone, and this is not a place that most people associate with a gigantic magma storage chamber, magma body at all. Yet the new research suggests that under Tuscany, there is a reservoir that is containing more than 5,000 cubic kilometers of partially molten rock, magma, with some coverage rounding that to about 6,000 cubic kilometers, buried at roughly a depth of 10 miles, 8 to 15 kilometers. So that's a staggering amount of magma. We have to say that. This is not something small. And that's exactly why some headlines that we're seeing immediately started comparing it to Yellowstone. One of the reports says the magma system below Tuscany is similar in size to that of the Yellowstone supervolcano, and another one says it's comparable in volume with Yellowstone, but they all say the same. It is in the same range, in the same league as Yellowstone. But are we dealing with a supervolcano here that might do something bad? That is the big question. So now, before we panic, this does not mean that Tuscany is about to erupt like Yellowstone did with a supervolcanic eruption. This is not what the study says. I mean, they just found it, right? What it means is that scientists have found a very large hidden magmatic system beneath the Tuscan Magmatic Province. And this, well, we have to say, I mean, that's a fact. It changes completely how we understand now this entire region. So the area that's involved includes the geothermal region of Larderello and Monte Amiata. So this system appears to be acting like a giant thermal engine underneath the region. Well, if we have thermal energy, geothermal energy, what could be the reason, right? So there is actually, this is a German volcanology report that is describing this not as a classic molten chamber, like a magma chamber, but as a distributed system of crystalline rock with melt that is trapped inside it. And it's extending from 8 to 15 kilometers, 10 to 12 miles below the surface. So that's not too far down. So why did they find this? And how did they find this massive, massive thing that is hiding underground? And what does this mean for the future of Tuscany? So in order to find it, they have used a method that is called ambient noise tomography. And this is one of the most interesting parts of the whole story, because instead of relying only on earthquake waves that you could send down there and then you see how the waves are reflected, the researchers have analyzed the Earth's constant natural background vibrations that are caused by things like ocean waves, wind, and even human activity. So they have set up about 60 seismic stations, and with these stations, they have recorded these weak signals. And from these data, scientists built a 3-dimensional image of the crust beneath Tuscany. And now, once you have this 3D image, it became clear, whoa, wait a minute, something is unfolding here. What they basically found were zones where the seismic waves slow down dramatically. Why would they slow down? Well, if something's like has a different texture, because slowing down, that matters, because waves move differently through solid rock than they do through partially molten material like magma, for example, right? So when the scientists see like strongly, and in this case, really, really strongly reduced seismic velocities at depth, that is one of the big clues that magma is present, melt is present. So in this case, underneath Tuscany, the results point to a huge, really, really large magma mush system beneath Tuscany. This is how they call it. Like it's not a giant pool of completely liquid magma. It's more like a mush, but it's also a broad region of partially molten rock in how we can describe it, melt-rich zones. So that distinction is important, because when people hear like magma reservoir, everyone goes right away like, oh my God, right? They imagine that there's a giant underground lake of like liquid explosion, eruption ready stuff. But that is usually not how these systems work. So in many cases, especially in like large crustal systems like this here, you're looking at a mixture of hot crystals, of melt, and of fluids, something way more complex than a simple magma chamber. And that is what appears to exist here. And that is also why it helps to explain why Tuscany is already famous for geothermal energy. So this discovery strongly supports the idea that this deep magmatic system is what powers this geothermal field, especially in Larderello. That's one of the world's most productive geothermal regions. Now, that might now not be a surprise anymore. I'm surprised that they didn't find this sooner. So this system there, really, it actively transports heat and fluids upward, and this likely explains why energy production there has remained so unusually strong for so long. So someone must have wondered, how can that be? It never eases out. So now we know. It also is worth to mention that the Larderello power system dates back to 1913. So it's one of the oldest geothermal power operations in the world. Boof, let that sink in. So we're not just talking about a volcano story here. This is a long story for over 100 years. And it's an energy story. We have to say that. It's a crustal heat flow story. And it's a story about, how Earth can hide these enormous magnetic systems between landscapes where most people think that they already understand the landscape, right? But, if you have geothermal heat, you might think that there is such an unusual good amount of heat, right? But the most unsettling part of all is, in my opinion, Tuscany is globally known for its scenery, the history, the towns, the food, the vineyards, the tourism, right? It's not the first place where people think like massive hidden magma reservoir. I mean, if you hear the word Yellowstone, everyone thinks about this, right? So one thing that is good, thankfully, this system beneath Tuscany seems less active than Campi Flegrei, but it's still very important for the geothermal activity, right? What the scientists are also telling us, it is a little bit smaller than Yellowstone. That's what they estimate, but it is larger than many individual volcanic fields. So that gives us a little bit of a better understanding of the scale of this. So what I want to make clear, this is not just, oh, we found another Yellowstone supervolcano beneath Italy. That would be misleading. So let's not dive into that. But what scientists have really found is a giant mid-crustal magmatic system. This is the best description that we can give this thing. It's beneath Tuscany. It's large enough to force comparison with famous supervolcanic systems, but it's behaving in a very different way, thankfully. And there's one more thing that I want to point out because the accuracy there matters a lot. Some reporting frames the comparison in quite the dramatic way with Yellowstone, right? But the actual significance here, the scientific significance here, is not just like eruption risk or something like this. What really is interesting is that this finding, this discovery, changes the scientific picture of Tuscany's subsurface completely. And in my opinion, we might find stuff like this all over the world now. I'm pretty sure that wherever we have significant geothermal fields, people might look into this right now. So it's not a quiet underground setting with only 1 week left over magmatic activity. That we have to also make clear on the other side. This is a huge dynamic heat system made of partially molten rock that helps explain the extraordinary geothermal output in this region. So the bottom line of all of this is they found this likely containing 5,000 cubic kilometers of partially molten material. It's not too deep down, right? 10 to 12 miles, large enough to be compared in scale to the magma systems of famous supervolcanoes even, right? Even though Tuscany itself is not behaving like a supervolcano, but this discovery may completely reshape how scientists understand volcanism in the future, because they might find more stuff, I tell you that, right? How they understand heat flow, how they understand geothermal energy, not just in central Italy, I think all over the world. So it's still great. Well, is it great? I mean, this is one of Europe's most known, famous tourist destinations, right? And it's been hidden for such a long time, and it's bigger than almost anyone expected. So I hope you found that interesting, guys. But check out what's going on in Campi Flegrei, and if you want an update on the biggest typhoon on Earth, then also click here. I hope to see you in a second. Thank you. Bye-bye.